it away.
All right. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. I realize I'm probably one of the last two people standing between you and ice cream. Who's familiar with the Association of Oil Crews? Ever heard of it before? Okay, great. So electronic warfare is pretty much like auto racing. 5 minutes after the second car was built, auto racing was born. As soon as you had communications systems being used by the threat, and they were gaining an advantage, electronic warfare was designed to defeat that. So during World War II, they had a project called Project Raven. That was basically the overarching name of the system of the project that had all the electronic warfare people in it during World War II. You know how we like to shorten things up. Raven doesn't roll off the tongue as easy as crows, so they just called these guys crows. And in 1964, they created the association. All those guys from World War II were now looking like me, so they were old crows. So that's why we have the Association of Old Crows. So I am Kevin Finch. I'm a retired colonel out of the Army. I was a acquisition officer for too long. Anyways, one of my jobs in the Army, I was always the PM for electronic warfare and cyber. I'm on the board of Association of Old Crows. They're like, hey, Finch, you have electronic warfare and cyber in one of your job titles. Come talk to these folks. So here I am. So that's why I'm here today, to give you kind of like an update on like, hey, why AOC and why we're here talking cyber. So association basically exists to do three things: educate, connect, and advocate. And so we're nonprofit, and we're advocating on behalf of all of our members and stakeholders for electronic warfare and spectrum operations community. So why is this important to cyber? And really the reason is that we advocate for anything that operates in the EMS. And I will tell you, having been the PM for not only electronic warfare and cyber, a lot of the capabilities that we were building for the cyber community used the EMS in order to engage the targets. So from that perspective, a lot of those same technologies that are used in electronic warfare are also used in RF-enabled cyber. So the other piece of this too is that since we have a long history, we also have a very good community to advocate with. So we have advocacy that's happening on the Hill and a lot of the stakeholders. It is a pretty small community, kind of like cyber is as well. I remember when George Franz used to be in charge, he's like, hey, I could put all the cyber guys in a room this size and still have seats left over. That was not that long ago, folks, because I was I was there when we kind of started that up. We're also have contact with, and we're working very closely with Electronic Warfare Working Group at Congress and the Senate to make sure that we're advocating for electronic warfare and by default RF-enabled cyber capabilities, for our forces. And why does this get really important? And I would say there's a couple of main reasons, but the landscape is changing, right? Like, so I will just talk to you as an acquisition guy. I'm seeing it. Pretty much all the on-net stuff is getting funded out of Cybercom, but now all the RF-enabled cyber capabilities are being funded out of the services. So now you have this separation of who's paying for what. And so then when you get to that point, the people who work primarily with the services, there's a lot of overlap now between the cyber community and the electronic warfare community, because a lot of the systems that are looking to use to deploy these cyber capabilities are the electronic warfare platforms. Because they do have the capabilities. Got news for you. They're working on they got a SDR, they got a power amp, and they got an antenna, and they got an ability to send something. So it's you have all the things you need in order to accomplish that. But we do have a great expertise to that. So, many of the companies that build all of this equipment, come to our conventions. And so there is a lot of overlap there. So we're basically saying like, hey, we realize electronic warfare has this overlap when we need to work together as a community to make sure that we're advocating for our soldiers and for our airmen and our Marines and the such. Now, let's say one of the things from an education perspective, and I realize I got to go fast because I'm running out of time. We do a really good job at education, and so the AOC puts on a podcast, and we try a really good job to try to get people from different aspects of the community not only from the guys flying aircraft trying to jam S-21 radars or S-21 missiles sites, but we also have guys who are working down at Fort Gordon, working on code, trying to do cyber capabilities. So we try to get a pretty good cross-section of that. But a big piece of it is just to educate. And I will say that one of the things that we do pretty well as far as like a member thing is we publish this magazine called JED. I will personally tell you this is probably the best professional magazine that comes out of any organization. If you look to the back part of it, there's usually either an EW 101 course or there's like some information from like specific things. In this case, they have like a really good breakdown of electronic warfare suites for airborne platforms. But from that perspective, they do a really good job of trying to make sure their membership understands, what's going on in the community. You also get a lot of like 100 hours plus of webinar content for free. I will tell you, I personally go to see these webinars because if there's a topic I'm not familiar with, we have a really good base of thought leaders and subject matter experts on stuff. You do a really good job doing that. But we also do a bunch of other things as well. We get discounts. You go to conferences, and I will say the conferences that we have are very good. We have a national conference, but then we have a bunch of sub conferences to go. And so, just one, for instance, one that kind of sucked me into this AOC years ago was the SEMA conference, the Cyber and Electromagnetic Activity up at Aberdeen Proving Grounds. But that one was kind of like the nexus of seeing this EW and cyber convergence that was happening years ago. But AOC's been a kind of a leader in advocating for those the RF-enabled cyber capabilities and has been for a long time. The SEMA, I think, is like, Stu's at like year 10 plus now. But it's a really great event. And there's also a cyber event that AOC does about every 2 years down in Charleston, South Carolina as well. So we do a pretty good job on social media. So we're on LinkedIn and we're also on Facebook, like for all the folks like to do that. And then also we put a nice QR code. I actually gave a version of this briefing a while back at a classified thing, and I was like, take all that stuff off. We're going to bust somebody who pulls up their phone in the middle of a classified session. But if you like to find out more, please take out your phone and do the QR code and give us some feedback, and I'll obviously be around. I will pause there because I think I still have like 5 minutes. So I blew through that pretty quick. So does anybody have any questions about the Association of Old Crows? Yes.
You guys used to have a certification program, but it looked like it disappeared like 2 years ago. Is that coming back?
We've actually talked about that, and because there is a need for that. Because one of the problems, or one of the challenges that we're seeing is the technology and stuff is changing so quickly that there is a kind of a need for that. But that is something we have been talking about, and I will definitely be taking that back to the board because you're not the first person who's been talking about that. Yes, sir.
So from a cyber perspective, all electronic is just zero, right?
What's that?
It's just the bottom of cyber. It's just the bottom layer.
Oh, this
everything, right? Because eventually cyber is, frequencies and voltage.
Yeah. And typically when we think about it, right, it's like it's either on net or it's off net, right? But the thing that I know, I'll just kind of talking. I'm talking to the choir here, right? It scares me when I go around and I see critical infrastructure with an antenna on top of it, right? With an antenna on top of it. So now there's that a way to get into something from an RF perspective. So if you're looking at specific, especially if you're looking to do offensive cyber capabilities and you don't have an RF component to your attack, then you're going to be missing some of those main targets. I mean, we've seen it time and time again in modern conflicts. Hey, as soon as somebody goes in, they try to cut the cable, and the next thing you know, they're going to an RF means of providing internet. So like I said, it didn't take, 5 minutes after the second car was built, the auto racing was born. 5 minutes after somebody tries to change their means of providing something, somebody's trying to provide, create a means of denying that. So this continues to be the cat and mouse game that we've been seeing for years. But
And the current DoD cyber boss is in North Dakota, right?
Lori Buckout, yep. I am trying my best to get her to come talk at our symposium this year. So I got a verbal from her, she said yes. Yep.
How's membership? I was just out in Denver with one of the DoD's big EW providers out there, and we were talking about kind of skill sets for junior EW operators being a real challenge. And so are you seeing a lot of joins by 20-something like junior EW professionals?
We try a lot of different things to get more junior members. Like we have the Fab Five that we do where we're trying to highlight like, young and upcoming folks. It's always a challenge. I mean, like the biggest challenge that we see from a military perspective, I'll give you an example. I'll use myself as an example. I really didn't get involved with them until I was a lieutenant colonel, right? But that seems to be about the point in people's career where they really start seeing the value of these associations. Like, hey, I got told to go to them when I was younger, but then as you get older, then you get to really see hey, what's the real value of that? And I mean, it's kind of the same story. Like, hey, the reason it was the old crows was you had the guys who did this back in the 40s. 20 years later, they were like, hey, we need to have an association to bring everybody together. So that's like a trend that we see over and over again. But it is hard to get new people into, like younger people, and it's because, hey, they're busy from a professional perspective, they have families, I mean, it's all the things that prevents people from usually getting actively involved. Great question, though.
Nice, great job.
All right, thanks.